This
Name.
conference will now be recorded.
My name is Sarah Curry, and I am the past president of the AIS, which also makes me the de facto elections chair, which is a role that I've been looking forward to for many years now. And I'm really excited to help you all get through this process, both the pre-candidacy and the candidacy and the post-candidacy and all of those things. So hopefully we'll have a good time, and hopefully I'll get to know many of you much better throughout this entire process. Um, just to hop into what it's like to run um, for office, many of these things are outlined on the website and in the election guidelines. So I'm just going to paraphrase a few things and not contradict anything. But if anything I say does contradict what is in the packet, what is in the packet is true and correct. But in terms of running, as I kind of alluded to, there's a pre-candidacy time. That's where we are right now, where you're thinking about running, or maybe you've already decided decisively to run, and you definitely want to be working on your elections candidacy packet, and that's what's outlined very specifically on the website. If you are running for one of our international ambassador positions, then there is information in a packet you fill out as well. However, you won't end up running. You'll just end up putting your best foot forward and being appointed by the board and reviewed by the Council of, the Council of Global Reps. So a slightly different process, but we'll be mentioning that process throughout this call tonight. Like I said, you'll be going through your packet stuff. You'll turn the packet into me on Friday, November 20th, 2020, which is this year. That is a little over a week away, which is both exciting and terrifying at the same time. I'm sure you all will do well with yours. This is a good time for me to plug that, unfortunately, due to the bylaws, I cannot stretch that deadline at all. I know at the AIS we do a lot of extended deadlines for things. If you've been here long enough, then you're well aware. But unfortunately, this is not a time where I can do that. If you do not turn in your packet on time, then all you'll have to do is, if you still intend to run, which I hope you will, is you'll run as an undeclared candidate. And that means that your campaigning and people's knowledge of your campaign will begin on the first day of forum. And we'll get into that once we get to that point in the timeline. Once you've turned your packet into me, though, I will review it. I'll spend a week reviewing it and also making sure that you fit all of the qualifications. I use air quotes around qualifications because all you have to do is be an AIS member and be from a chapter in good standing. So we really keep it wide open. There truly aren't very many barriers at all to running once you're already in the organization, which I think is fantastic. But once you've done all those things and I've approved you, then your acute headshot of you and your packet will be uploaded to the website. If you are wondering what that could possibly look like, I very much encourage you to search on the website just in the search bar, type candidates, and you'll see years of candidates past. And it's a great place to get ideas for your own packet, and also just see how the elections process has very lightly evolved over the years. But that will be up and online for everyone to see for about a month, the entire month of December, essentially, prior to the point when we get to forum. We'll be going through the month of December as we normally do, in the sense that there will not be any major campaigning on your part. In fact, if someone were to ask you if you were running, all you would really say is, yes, I am running. Please check out my packet online. The reason we still don't allow major campaigning or posters or any sort of high-tech process is because, for one thing, we want to keep it equitable and fair. We don't want someone to, be paying for Instagram sponsorships or ads or anything when someone else could not afford it. We also would hate for this to turn into any sort of popularity contest or anything. We definitely want to make sure everyone has a fair chance. And the third reason is because we're looking out for you. We would hate for you to be, caught up in finals, right? And then someone else who maybe is already done with theirs is like spending all of their free time advertising for themselves, and then you are having to worry about why you can't do that either. So it's a number of safety precautions, but that's how we keep things on the level. Um, the other thing that we'll be doing in December that's a bit different from usual is we'll be having a voter town hall, very similar to this, except full of delegates. What's exciting about that is that obviously we'll get to convey a lot of the things about how voting will go this year, but we'll also be able to advertise you all a bit lightly, as the national office will be doing that on your behalf. Which I think will be a great way to remind people about the substance of these elections and making sure that everyone reads the packets that you worked really hard on. And so that's the main intent of those things. There may be a few other sort of similar events that we put on, but you all will be notified of that as soon as they're planned and scheduled, I assure you. The other thing that will be happening in December is we'll be meeting a bit with all of the candidates to start practicing for the real deal when we arrive at Forum. If you have run before or you've witnessed someone else running, you'll know that when you get to Forum, when it's happening in real life, in real time, in a place, the way things used to do, it's a little bit hectic. There's a lot going on. And if you're a candidate, you almost never get to attend any of the sessions because you're so busy, writing speeches, practicing the speech, trying to talk to people who are like in your quad, but you don't want to be weird and like not talk to people who aren't in your quad. It's a whole thing. We're hoping to eliminate that a bit this year by getting a lot of the practice sessions and prep work out of the way and up front so that when you get to those things, it won't be like, I just wrote this the morning before and I've never said it to anyone. So that's the dream. So again, that's what we'll be doing in December. Just to wrap up this section pretty quickly, once you get to Forum, even though the schedule is condensed and stretched in different ways compared to last year's forums or forums of the past, we'll still be doing the basic elements of the elections process, in which there is a short speech, there is a Q&A for quad directors. You'll do that with your quad. Your current quad director will be asking you the questions. And that's sort of a safe and lovely space for you to do that. If you're running for an officer position, then you'll be doing your Q&A in front of everybody. And it's tons of fun. Would recommend, 11 out of 10. And then after that, there will be a long speech. And then we're trying to schedule at least one event that is sort of mingling, if you will, between candidates and delegates. That's structured. And then after that, it all comes down to the voting, which is, of course, one of the more important parts of the process. So all of that will still go down. Once we've had the voting process, which will be carried out by yours truly and the current board, we will let you all know who has won in a private, super fun call. I'm sure it will be very similar to this. And then we'll tell everyone at the very last closing session of the conference, and that's when your transition period starts. Before we hop into what it's like to be in that transition period and what it feels like to be in the role, were there any questions about the, like pre-forum period? We are going to go in depth with the packets later, so don't be afraid to ask a packet question, but we'll get to things. Okay, sweet. No questions. High level of comprehension. Love to see it. So, as I was saying, once you've won your race, as I'm sure you will, you'll suddenly be thrust into the position that you would like to hold once we are inaugurated later on in July. Just to run through the positions, just for fun, in case you haven't heard, Obviously, on our national board, there are a few positions that you cannot run for. Those include our allied organizational liaisons and our executive director. However, the other 8 positions on our board are the president, the vice president, the 4 quad directors, and the 2 international ambassadors. Wait, I did not do the math right on that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. 8 of them. That's those are all the positions that you can run for or be appointed to. Um, I was going to maybe I'll ask President Conti if she wants to touch on what it's like to be an officer. I guess president specifically, because I may ask past Vice President Fogel if he'll chat about being a VP later after Aaron is gone.
Yeah, of course. I can do a little of both, just being an officer in general and being president. It's a great time, 11 out of 10 for sure. Highly recommend. But no, it's a really cool job, just representing the AIS every single day and really being the voice for students amongst, not only within the AIS, but within the other organizations, our allied organizations. The president specifically also sits on the board and the strategic council throughout their term of the AIA, whereas the vice president sits on the board for the ACSA. So both roles do kind of play as the advocate for the AIS within the collaterals, but the president is kind of seen as the external facing officer and really speaks more to the AIS in the public realm, I guess you could say. But some of the specific fun things about the role of the president is kind of being all about our programming. So dealing with things with our AIS advocates, which has been super fun. I see at least one of them here right now. And freedom by design is a big part of the president's role. And all of our committees. I know many of you are on committees, and that's really great to see you here. It's a great way to get started in your leadership journey. But the president is kind of, I guess you could say, the chair of all the committees, gets to decide what they are and what their charges will be, and kind of facilitates throughout the year. Also serves as a liaison to as many as necessary. This year, I think it's 4. And also serves on the governance committee as a member, and then gets to chair it as past president. But I'm sure Sarah could tell you more about the role of past president, which we all know is why we run in the first place. But within the office, being an officer, it's kind of different on the board level versus the staff level. So the president is the chair of the board of directors and the council of presidents, kind of a governance guru. So if that's your jam, then the role of the president is for you. But on the day-to-day, the officers are staff members in the national office. So kind of serving as general support, making sure if anything is needed by any of our other amazing staff, we're here to do that. A lot of maintaining the website, writing blog posts, sending emails. The officers this year have taken over social media, so that's been a really cool thing to be a part of. And just overall serving as a subject matter expert, really being the point person when we're making decisions, and keeping what the students need in mind. A lot of times we'll be brainstorming as a team all together, but Sarah and I get to be the ones to say, hey, this is really the direction we need to be in because of what our students need right now. So that's what I'd say the most important part of the job is for either officer, is just really keeping the needs and the wants of our members in mind at all times, all day long. And it's a really great time.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, President Conti. Past Vice President Adam Fogel, welcome to the show. There's a ton of applause, I'm sure. But yeah, would you like to touch on a bit what you did as Vice President and maybe like the difference in roles?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on the GoToMeeting app. Can everyone hear me okay? Word. Okay. It's hit or miss with some of these iPhone apps. But anyway, hi everyone. Thank you for inviting me here, past President Curry, to talk about my experience. So Aaron hit on a lot of the main points about president and like the culture in the office. All the office stuff is really the same for the vice president. You're there to help support the staff, but also be the student voice, making sure all the programming that we're talking about and everything that's going on is with the students at, the front of your focus. But the vice president, as you may know, wears many hats, pun intended. On the board level, you sit as the vice president, so you don't chair anything in terms of like the governance structure, but you do serve in the boardroom as secretary. You also will be the treasurer for the organization, and that involves chairing the finance committee and working closely with the executive director on budgeting, preparing reports, credit card statements, all of the stuff that goes with finance. You help with that. The secretarial stuff is mainly just minutes, and taking minutes at meetings and helping kind of proofread agendas prior to meetings and that kind of thing, just making sure that the president has support in some of those things. Some other responsibilities of the vice president include chairing the membership committee. Now, both officers really do focus on membership, but the way that the vice president specifically focuses on it is through analytics, collecting data, working with staff members that have access to a lot of the analytics that we use for website content, for membership stats. If you're a chapter president, for example, you'll understand that you used to get these rosters that were sent out and like they had all your chapter info and that kind of thing. So as a quad director, you also get that stuff, but as vice president, you are helping to manage all of that stuff that's going on. So if spreadsheets are your jam, the the VP role might be for you. And in addition to just managing all that stuff, you also get to put together some cool analytics. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity for content creation, especially the direction that Aaron and Sarah have taken it this year with their officer managing social media now. They help with a lot of that stuff. So it's not just like spreadsheets and stuff. You get to do a lot of fun stuff as well. For example, one of the best highlights of my year was all of the Visible Value Wednesday content that I got to put out. Yeah, super, super big benefit for the VP role. And in addition to that, Aaron also talked about working with the allied organizations in architecture. As vice president, you sit on the ACSA, which is the American Collegiate School of Architecture. Or I think I got that right. Did I get that right, Sarah? Yeah, why, who knows? Anyway, the ACSA is like the professional organization for educators. So you'll work with deans of schools, you'll work with professors, and basically anyone who has a hand in architecture school. You serve on their board as student director. And it's a year term, just like your term in office, and you start July and go until the next July because they're also on the same academic calendar that we are on. That role is a really great opportunity to have your, like you really understand what's going on in education and how the future of education is functioning. So if you're interested in helping to steer some of what architecture school is really like, then definitely consider being in the vice president position. Now you do work a lot still with AIA, NCARB, and NAB. There's a lot of overlap there and a lot of joint stuff that the officers that end up doing. There was, when I was coming up into the organization as a wee lad, there was always this thing that the president was more of the outward facing, and then the vice president, was inward facing. But over the past year, I would argue that that's not exactly true, because the president works with a lot of members, the vice president works with a lot of members, and both of them work hand in hand dealing with a lot of the goings about in the architectural organizations. So I would encourage you guys to not really think about that way. Like if you're interested in membership, but you also are interested in some of the stuff that the president's doing, like definitely sit down and think about the pros and cons for everything. But yeah, so those are the big highlights for vice president. Obviously, your day-to-day is going to differ. And where we're at now, who knows what's going to happen. But yeah.
Wow, thank
If I could add something, Sarah, I'm so sorry.
please, please.
Did just want to say, one of the cool things is that being an officer, every day looks completely different. No day is the same. And the role this year certainly has looked different than it was for Sarah and Adam. And I'm sure it will look different a year from now. So there's a lot of things changing all the time, a lot of it for the better. But we will do our best within the transition period to make sure the next set of officers are ready for whatever is to come.
Wow, so eloquent these two are. But yes, thank you so much for sharing your officer level experience. I'll kind of touch on what it's like to be a quad director for a bit. And once I get through being a quad director, if Fernando would like to talk about being an international ambassador, he is welcome to, but don't let me put you on the spot, Fernando. But in the essence of a quad director, you will get to be on the front lines of communicating with chapters super frequently. Obviously, if you've been a chapter leader, then you've gotten in touch with your own quad director. Some of the very cool and sort of obvious things that they do include, again, talking to you on a sometimes daily, but often weekly to monthly basis. What they do with all that information is they'll put it into reports that are actually handed over to the board on a quarterly basis. Another thing they do is serve on 2 committees as liaisons, and so that's a process by which they assist the chair. They take meetings during all of those minutes. They help coordinate those as best as they can, and are generally just great moral support for everyone involved. Another thing that quad directors do kind of egregiously is, like I said, they're in communication with you, but they also help connect you to other chapters. So it's not just looking at you in a silo. They're also saying, hey, another chapter has a solution to your problem or wants to meet up with you. Let me make that connection. And I would say that making connections is a big deal for being a quad director. You don't have to have a ton of experience or have like been through a lot, at your chapter. You don't have to have all the answers. But if you want to find the answers and then bring people to them, then you would make a great quad director. Quad directors, in terms of their responsibilities to the board, like I mentioned, they write reports for and attend board meetings throughout the year. There are 4 major ones, the grassroots, the fall, the forum, and the spring. However, there are often what we call special calls, where we send out a doodle poll, see who's available and when, and then we'll have just like a quick meeting to go over something that is an important topic for the month. You have a lot of board level responsibilities. Some of them include financial responsibilities, so that's reviewing certain documents and giving your opinion on them, stating your concerns. You read a lot of things very thoroughly in order to have a background and perspective on something. You have to speak up often and loudly on behalf of your quad and the members that you represent. So your officers and your national office staff will present to you different things that the AIS is considering, and it's your job to make sure that all of those things align with the interests of your quad. And if there's something we're totally missing, then it's also your responsibility to bring that up. And then you, in hand, take all of that information and relay it to your quad so that they're not in the dark. One of the things you'll get to do towards the end of your transition and just before you are inaugurated is also work on a lot of the materials and teaching topics that happen during the grassroots conference, which is always tons of fun. It's a really great time to get to sort of the core of what our members need to know for the year going forward, and it also allows you to get to know your board really well because you'll work with another quad director who you may or may not know on teaching whatever your two topics are. And if you've been to grassroots, then you're aware of sort of what those look like. And if you haven't, then I'm not going to tell you what it's like because it's always super fun to get a quad director who has never been to a grassroots and have them teach everyone about different things that go on in the beginning of the year. Similar lead to grassroots at Forum, there's a lot of opportunities for quad directors to either have or host a session or just be very supportive. They will obviously conduct your quad breakouts, which are just very similar to your monthly meetings with chapters, except they'll all be in one place at once, and you'll be speaking to them about different updates and things. As a quad director, you're also welcome and very much encouraged to attend whether it's a quad conference or a large event that maybe you decide your quad needs to have. All of that is entirely up to you, and you're encouraged to sort of take point on those things. The quad directors get a ton of support from each other, so it's a really great family to be a part of. I know I'm still close with many of the ladies that I was a quad director with, but you are also supported by your officers and the rest of the board. So it's definitely not a solo gig, but be prepared to learn a lot, to be confronted with things that you feel like you don't know how to do or have never done before, but you're looking forward to getting into. And that's another, again, experience and role I would recommend, 11 out of 10. But you really can't go wrong with those. Before I ask Fernando to tell us about what it's like to be a regional ambassador, I see we have a question from Rachel, and I'll read it for her if she doesn't mind. Are there any major shortcomings of an officer candidate if they were never a quad director? Great question. I'll answer it, I guess. I was checking to see if we had anyone, but no. So I think I want to say that the easy answer is no. There are no shortcomings to becoming an officer if you've never been a quad director. It has happened many times before. And there have even been times when someone who has not served as a quad director goes to the race and then upsets, someone who has been a quad director. I think there are benefits to both experiences. If you have not been a quad director, then I think you are coming in with a fresh perspective, right? You don't know how things typically go, which means that you can throw out ideas that are, of course, still intrinsic to the AIAS experience, but aren't wrapped up in sort of the red tape, if you will. And it's you're still, again, supported by your board that does have that experience, and diversity of thought and background is always a benefit to any group, but especially the AIS board of directors. If I had to actually answer your question, if I had to think of any shortcomings, maybe just like a smaller expectations of what it is like, just because maybe you haven't sat in all the board meetings and such that you would have to run and participate in as an officer. So maybe that would be a bit of like a shock to the system, but nothing that's non-overcomable, which is a word I just made up. I think it would be an interesting experience for sure, and you would probably design your meetings differently based on the fact that you've never sat through one before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The only thing I would add is just it would your learning curve for some of the processes, especially like board meeting related, might be a little longer, but that would just reflect in your transition process with your predecessor, and you'd work it all out there.
Excellent point. Yes, we're never going to leave you in the dark. Thanks, Neshe. Fernando, do you want to speak about what it's like being a regional ambassador?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. It wasn't working last time I used GoToMeeting, but cool. Yeah, I would say being an ambassador is pretty similar to being a quad director, but of course you're representing the chapters outside of the US. we have Latin American chapters and Middle Eastern chapters. And so you have similar responsibilities as a quad director. You have to attend the board of director meetings, you have to write the reports, and also go to the other meetings and really represent the chapters that you are sort of like in charge of. And communication is also a big part, communicating with these chapters outside of the US about what is going on in the national office or in the US. And I guess something unique about these chapters outside of the US is there are some differences on the schools and what they sort of like the things that the benefits they get because they are outside of the country, and there's also different rules. The universities sometimes have also different rules, so there's some difference, but overall it's pretty similar to the quad director role that Sarah Corey did a really good job at describing. Something unique about this year is that we are appointing the ambassadors during forum rather than grassroots. So I basically started during grassroots, so I didn't get the chance to have that transitional period, but we're doing that this time. And yeah, I think it'll be great. If you guys have any questions or anything, you can always send me a DM through Instagram or ask in this meeting. Oh, and just one more thing. As a regional ambassador, you serve in the Committee of Council of Global Representatives, and you're not a liaison, you serve in it. So that's one of the bigger differences with quad directors who are in two different committees as a liaison.
Fantastic. That was awesome, Fernando. Yeah, if you have any questions, definitely ask him because he's got the 411 and has been doing a great job as our Latin American ambassador. If there aren't any other questions, then I'll go ahead and jump into the packet. But again, feel free to ask a question at any time. That's totally fine. I'm going to share my screen. And when I do that, I won't be able to see the comments. So don't even worry about it. Just come off mute and holler, I guess, and then we'll take it from there. So if I don't hear anyone saying anything, then I'll assume that you can see my screen. And the silence is golden. So if you've never been here before, this is the AIAS website. Do recommend taking a look. But if you go to the About tab and then tap on Become a Candidate, it will take you to this page. And it's got all the basic info, so everything we've been through and said already. Here's a summary of sort of, again, the step one in terms of becoming a candidate, which is the candidacy declaration page. There's more information about that further down in the guidelines, but this is just reinforcing the fact that there is a deadline. There won't be exceptions. As much as I would love for there to be, I have to be in compliance with the bylaws. There are a few other additional items here about how to label the files that you send to me by that due date. I'll go ahead and tell you, if you send me a file and it's not labeled exactly this way, or you left out an underscore, like, I'm not going to be like, how could you do this to me? So don't worry about that, but it is helpful for my file sorting process if you comply. So thank you in advance. There's a little clause here about the campaigning and how that is not allowed at all until we get to the actual conference. But again, there is more on that once you click on Elections Candidate Guidelines.
I have a question real quick.
Oh,
sorry.
Hit me. What's up?
In all of the past candidate packets, the flyer was in with the packet, but then you have it as separate. Do we do it as put it in both or keep it separate?
That's an excellent question. So I would prefer that you separate it because the reason we are asking for them is because since it's a virtual conference and everything, whatever flyer you design is what the AIAS as an organization will advertise on your behalf. So that's what we will be putting out during some of the sessions at Forum. You'll see, like, before they start, there's like a slideshow that runs through, and that's what we'll include to sort of help, again, get your name and vibe out there. So if you include them in the packet, all I might say to you is, hey, can you also send me the JPEG? But again, yeah, would be cool if they were outside the packet, but don't feel like you'll be penalized if you accidentally put them in the packet.
Cool, thank you.
Yes, good eye, checking out the past year's packets, which is a pro tip I definitely recommend. These are the elections guidelines. I hope you like them. I put them together myself, but however, they are strongly based on many packets of the past. Before you even get into the requirements, we go through this overview of what it means to serve on the board of directors. This is just to make sure that no one has any misgivings or confusions about what is expected of you in the role. And it's summarized, I would say, pretty nicely in sort of these 10 bullet points. And if any of these 10, or even most of the 10, sound like things that you would enjoy doing, then you're probably in the right place. Getting into the rules and procedures, these are kind of things we've already gone through. However, I do want to point out, again, if you're into the governance or just looking for sort of the laws behind why we do things the way we do, then obviously check out the bylaws. You'll see a lot of items in chapter 7 and chapter 6. So I'd recommend reading through those if you'd like, and if they're of interest to you. But prior to Forum, these are sort of the major deadlines. I've kind of already been over this. November 20th is the deadline to submit your packet, and during the week following is when I'll send out a communication that is saying, yes, I have confirmed receipt of your packet, and also you have been identified or designated, I should say, as a certified candidate, which is tons of fun. The month of December is that very amorphous period that I've mentioned, where many things will be happening. Once we know who all of our certified candidates are, we'll pop you all in a Slack channel. You'll get regular updates from myself via there and also via email, talking about things that are coming up. And when, again, those practice sessions will be going on. It'll also be a good chance for you all to talk with each other because you'll finally know who else is running. And you'll be able to communicate in a supportive and friendly way like we always get to do at the AIAS. Once we get to Forum, again, pretty amorphous, but these are the things that will be happening in some capacity and not necessarily in this order. Prior to, or like the day before the conference, there will be a board of directors meeting where certified candidates are invited to attend as observers. It's totally fine if you can't make it. You won't miss like anything vital to your candidacy. It's just a courtesy we extend to those who would like to run. Once that has passed and the conference has actually started, there is again an opening speech during one of the earlier general sessions. You'll have your Q&As during your quad breakouts if you're a quad director. You'll have your Q&A in front of everyone if you're running for an officer position. We'll have the closing speeches, which are twice as long as the opening ones. And then we'll let you all know who won secretly, and then we'll let everyone know who won publicly. I've already been over this, and it's printed very clearly in here, so I'm not going to dwell on the hush clause that we have. But again, while of course you're welcome to let your closest friends know that you're running and ask them for advice and help with your packet, and while of course you're encouraged to let whoever is writing your letters of recommendation know that you're running, please, please, please do not advertise to anyone in the AIAS who could or even could not vote for you for the reasons I've already stated. If you are found to be campaigning, I unfortunately will have to investigate and I may have to disqualify you if that is found. Getting into the packet submission requirements, you'll start with a letter of intent, which is where you will just, you and me, one-on-one, talking it out about why you want to run for the position, why you think you'd be best, what motivated you to do so, And that is the very first thing that's in your packet after a cover page, as you'll see if you've looked at previous packets. After that, you've got your own resume, which you can limit to 2 pages. You'll have a letter of school support from whether it's your faculty advisor, a school head, or dean, or just a faculty member who has taught you and who knows you pretty well, then that's fine to include. It's limited to just one person and one letter, but if the letter goes to 2 pages, that is fine. If you that's fine, and close the book on that one. Moving on to the letter of support from a fellow AIS member at your chapter. They do not have to be the chapter president or any sort of chapter level board member. Could be even just a friend of yours who's able to write a really good letter about you. But that's all you need to include. We just want to know that someone else from your chapter supports you in your endeavors. After that, you'll get into the candidate questionnaire, and those questions are below. We'll get into that in a sec. There are a couple of statements that we ask you to sign and commit to a safe, fair, clean, honest, eyes open, hearts full sort of elections process, which I'm sure you all will participate in wholeheartedly, and then also some very basic contact information. After that, we get into the thing that Hunter mentioned, which are up to two campaign flyer items. Again, and the specifications are typed in here, so I won't really go through them. Also, I guess I could make this larger. It's just occurring to me that like you can't see, but we'll go through. We won't go into detail on these. However, if you have any questions at any time, please let me know. But you can. You're welcome to include them in the packet or send them separately. I'd appreciate if you send them separately, but you won't be counted against if that happens. In addition to the packet, please send me your loveliest headshot because that is what will go on the Meet the Candidates page, and that's the face that everyone will click on when they want to learn more about you. Moving right along, this page briefly explains the difference between certified candidates and undeclared candidates. I'm going to go ahead and assume that all of you will be certified candidates. However, if you don't get your packet to me in time, then you can still run as an undeclared candidate. Please read through this as there are differences between the two in terms of what you participate and when. But no matter what, if you plan to run as an undeclared candidate, please let me know as soon as you know that that's what you're going to do, just so that I can have it in my mind and that we can work with you on turning in the things that you may still need to turn in by the correct period of time. If you don't, for some reason, if an act of God prevents you from letting me know and we get to forum and you stand up or someone else stands up on your behalf and says, I nominate so-and-so and it's you, then don't worry, we'll figure it out. It's not impossible, but I would just love to know ahead of time. Anyone who knows me also knows that I hate surprises, so that would be pretty cool. This is a bit of information about elections process violations. I'm not going to go into those into too much detail because I know that all of you, again, are going to run a super amazing and clean and fair election, but the violations are outlined in this packet and also in the code of ethics that you sign and attach to your packet. So that's very clearly outlined. Pipping a bit through this so we still have time for questions. This is just a bit more information about those who are running for officer positions, and those details are linked in here, so you can click into that and get very similar information to what President Conte and past Vice President Fogel outlined, but it's just in a bit more detail and written down in case you weren't transcribing what they were saying. The same goes for the quad director position description. And if you're looking for information on the, before we get into this, if you're looking for information on the appointed ambassador application guidelines, then you'll click that button there and it will take you to this page, which has very similar information in it, however, pertains specifically to international ambassadors. Getting into this elections questionnaire, you've got 6 questions. They can be up to 2 pages in length in terms of your answers. You do have to like print the question also on the page, although obviously it's at your InDesign discretion or whatever program you choose to use in terms of how it looks. That's another tip. You can go back and look at past packets to see some of these answers have never, or some of these questions, I should say, have never changed. And so you can get a little feel for how they've been answered in the past. You can also get a feel for how people filled up their 2 pages. But these are the main points that we're going to ask you all to elaborate on. I would say don't sweat these too hard. If it helps, it may even be best for you to have, again, a close friend ask you these questions and you sort of answer, and that might help you get your thoughts out. Nothing to sweat over, because you'll have several speaking and vocal opportunities to either go over these things or go over new things once you get to the conference. This is our policy on compensation for interns, which is still an issue in some parts of the world, and so we still ask you to sign it. This is our elections codes of ethics, which, as I mentioned, illustrates some of the potential violations that I know you all will not commit, but also just reiterates how we want this to be a fair elections process. Contact information form, and that is the end of the packet. As I said earlier, the international ambassador appointment guidelines are very similar, although they do include more information about what it's like to serve our international regions. You'll see, again, a lot of the same basic background information, slightly different packet requirements. So if you know someone who's running, or if you yourself are running to be appointed, then keep that in mind. And then here's more information about the timeline and such. Again, similar questionnaire and the same things they have to sign. The last thing I wanted to go through, and then I truly will open it up to the floor for questions, is that you'll see there's this little accordion fold out about spring 2021 dates of importance. This used to mean something different. There was a time when, if you were elected in, on the first day of January, there were a few in-person events that you would have to attend. And we wanted to make sure we outlined those so that people could get time off of school or work or whatever. Things are different now. It's still important that these dates are sort of on your radar, even though 0 dates are listed, just vague seasons really. But these are things that as board-elect members and then also as officer-elect members, you'll be very encouraged to attend, and hopefully it will be easier because they will be virtual, most likely. And this should say A21, so that's my bad. But are there any questions about anything?
I have a comment, Sarah. That's
Please.
okay.
Yes.
Just one thing I forgot to mention that is pretty important for anyone interested in running for president. As I mentioned, you would serve on the AIA Strategic Council, and that term begins immediately after you are elected, because the Strategic Council actually begins their terms in December. So you would be coming onto the council a little late, but you will serve on the council for the entire calendar year of 2021, and then transition onto the AIA Board of Directors for 2022 and serve for half your term as past president on that board as well.
Yes, thank you. That's a very important point. And actually, one other thing we forgot to mention about running for an officer position is that once I've received your candidate packet, in addition to all the stuff we'll be doing in December, we will also arrange for you a meeting where you can ask all of your in the weeds questions and technical questions about what it's like to be an officer on staff every single day. You can ask about moving to DC, about what the pay is. We'll give you a lot of insider information about it so that you can be fully prepared to commit to that decision if you are elected. And we'll arrange those meetings for you with the current officers and also the AIS executive director. So you won't be in the dark. Well, while you all are thinking of these questions, please interrupt me at any time. I'll also just harp on a few other fun things. Like I said, while there is a hush clause on things, if you'd like to speak to the person who is currently serving in the role that you would like to have, you're welcome to speak with them about it. Please, be considerate of their time and what they may also be doing. But that's totally allowed and welcome. You're also welcome to tell me that you're running, because again, hate surprises, super nosy, love to know. So feel free to notify me of that. However, if I'm looking at you on this call, then don't feel like you have to, like send me a separate Slack DM. I totally get it. But those are outlets that are available to you in terms of learning more about the process. If you are if you're wanting someone to read over your packet before it's ready, again, please keep it sort of towards your closest friends. If you want to send me your packet before the deadline, just to look it over, while I can't say anything like, I don't know about that answer, that wasn't the strongest word choice I would go with. What I can say is, hey, it looks like you forgot the code of ethics sheet. Make sure you sign that and get it back to me. Or, hey, your resume, like when you send it, I can't open it, things like that. So you're welcome to engage me in that way. I'm happy to help in that capacity. Let's see, what else is there to go through? I mean, in terms of the process of running, it's a ton of fun. It's it's nerve-wracking and it's scary because you've never done it before. I'm not gonna lie to you. And doing anything you haven't done before is scary, including like ordering pizza on the phone for the first time, or like going to a part of town you've never been to. But once you've done it, it's totally fine, and you would do it again, is what I'm sure many people who have run and would like to run again would say. So even if you're just looking to get out of your shell, get to know more people in the AIS in general, practice your public speaking, and also practice talking about yourself. There are like almost infinite skills to be gained just by running, and the intent of running for office is not necessarily to win. You'll be a better person on the other side of this, regardless of what happens. So I'm excited to meet you all and see the people that you'll become after you've run these races. And I hope that maybe if you don't win, you'll still go on to do fantastic things either within or outside of the AIS, or that you'll run again and go through this experience a second or third time just to, again, get the feel and accomplish all of those goals that you set for yourself, which I think is the most important thing.
Hey Sarah, I just have a question out of curiosity. Has there been any like candidates who ran as undeclared last minute and like got a position like that? Like I didn't see it in my 3 years of AIS experience, but I'm so curious.
Neshe, let me tell you, girl. I don't know if you recall, but I believe the year was the winter of maybe 2016 or something. I was South Quad director, and my one job was to make sure that other people were running for South Quad director the following year. And so I had talked to like 5 people about it, and then on the day that packets were due, the day after, I should say, I got an email from the elections chair at the time, and she was like, hey, nobody ran for South Quad director, which was very embarrassing to me personally and also professionally. So that year, we ended up having 2 candidates run. They were both undeclared, so no one knew for sure that they were going to commit to running until we got to Forum. That was the one that happened in Texas. And it was Paul Bamson from UTK versus Emily Majors from Texas A&M, and Paul Bamson ended up winning that race and being the South Quad director for that year. In other undeclared positions, last year, we had Belen Vahil run for as an undeclared candidate, and she did an exceptional job with her race, and was definitely a favorite. She did not win the race, but that's okay, as we just established. She asked a lot of really great questions and brought a lot of people into the elections process, which was fantastic.
I have also witnessed, it was very early on, so I feel old saying this, I cannot recall what year, but I have seen there was a contested race and then a candidate ran undeclared and then did win. So it could happen.
Could happen. Yeah, and that's a good time to bring up that funny things are always happening during elections. Races that are uncontested become contested. There are undeclared candidates that come in and make everyone sort of rethink their strategy. There have been ties in the voting process. So anything can happen. We have a lot of processes in place to make sure that things still go smoothly when things like that do happen. And as your elections chair, I'm committed to making sure that everything still goes down fair and equitably. So one of the main reasons why I will be super communicative as we get closer and closer to the forum conference is because I just want to make sure that you all are not nervous or don't get anxious wondering what could happen. Definitely want to make sure that all of the potential avenues are outlined for you so that that's not a source of stress. And once we do all get together and all the candidates have been identified and you know who each other are, that's going to be a really great support system. You all's mental health is at like the highest priority for us. And so everything we'll be doing and saying and not doing and not saying is all to make sure that you all are going through this process. Of course, there are going to be nerves, but without any undue stress that would make this experience really unfortunate for you all. I see we have a question from Quinn, and I'll read it if he doesn't mind, but it says, are you able to drop out of the race mid-forum? And the answer is yes, you are allowed to drop out of the race if something happens and you'd like to go. You're also welcome to submit your packet and then drop out even before we get to forum. Any of that is also fine. You're welcome to concede a race, I guess, if it comes down to that in any sort of situation. But we're all very flexible over here. The only thing you can't do is decide to run after the one time that I will say to all the undeclared candidates, would you like to run? So after day one, it's sort of locked in. But yeah, you're welcome to drop out at any time. You do have to let me know that you've dropped out. Alrighty, well, it's been a fantastic hour with you all. I won't hold you for any amount of time. As I've said many times, if you'd like to get in contact with anyone on the current board of directors, you are welcome to. Just please be considerate of their time. You're welcome to contact me if you have any technical questions about the elections process or the packet. You can reach me at pastpresident@aias.org. I'm also in the national Slack. I'm not in any quad Slacks anymore. So if you've been reaching out to me there, I am not there. But I'm available to DM on the national Slack, and we can go over anything at any hour, including at 11:50 p.m. on Friday, November 20th. So opening that up. Always love a good midnight hour sort of discussion. But yes, thank you all so much for attending and for deciding to run these races. I'm already immensely proud of you. There's nothing you can do to make me less proud of you. So thank you for your time. And again, can't wait to see your packets in my inbox. President Conti, any closing thoughts or anything I forgot to say?
No, I think you hit it all. Just this is a very exciting time. I know this has been a pretty quiet call, but I hope you are all as excited as we are. Running in an election, having done it, I think 3 times, it's the most exciting and also at the same time most stressful experience you could probably ever have, but it is all worth it, win or lose. And just know that throughout all of it, you have our support. Sarah is your elections chair, and your officers and your quad directors. The entire board is behind you, and we will be there throughout the conference if you need. My biggest piece of advice is to find your support system and just kind of have them throughout the conference. If you need a support system, please reach out at any time, be it now before packets are due or in the middle of the conference. If you're panicking and just want to share your speech, we are here for you to help you in whatever way you need and see you succeed.
Beautiful. Alrighty, well, have a fantastic rest of your evening and weekend, y'all. But look forward to hearing from you soon. Adios.
Thank you, guys.